be done. Now, like I said, we can have wired or wireless cameras. If you want to go wireless, and I've got Wi-Fi cameras in my house, they work great. If you want to go wireless, the customer has got to have a wireless access point. Now, that access point might be built into their router and switch, the way it is on my Linksys router switch, or it may be a separate device. But just remember, if you want to go wireless with the cameras, you've got to have a wireless access point to work with them. And remember, with our wired cameras, we are going to need an open RJ45 switch socket for each camera that we're going to wire into the network. Now, we've got to understand some basic network technologies here so that we know what's going on when we're going to do the hookup and make our cameras and our 2040 happen on the local network and make them work properly. We're going to talk about some technologies. What I want you to understand is that I'm going to talk about the technologies as if they are separate things, and they are, but usually they're all included in one box. Just like your car has air conditioning and heat and a radio, so it's really, radio and CD player. So it's really, there's multiple systems in your car, but it's inside one car. Well, in our network devices, our typical devices in a small home or business, you're going to have like the Wi-Fi access point, the router and the switch, the firewall and the DHCP server, all built into one box. We're going to talk about them separately, and they are separate technologies, but remember, they could all well be contained in the same plastic box. First thing, when we're connecting our 2040 and our cameras, they have to connect to a network switch. This is our first basic step. We're going to hang the cameras, wire them in, power them up, hook them up to the switch. The switch is the device that's basically the traffic cop of the local network. Switches, it's a buzzword. They're called layer 2 devices because they read MAC addresses. MAC address is like your social security number. It's a number that's put in any network device, camera, PC, printer, whatever it is. If it's a device that's addressed on the network, it's going to have a MAC, Immediate Access Control Address. It's put in at the factory. This address is on every data frame, or I'm going to use the term packet because it's more familiar to people. On every data packet that flows through the network, the MAC addresses, destination and source, are on every packet. Switches read those MAC addresses. Now, what a switch does is when the packet comes in, the switch reads the MAC address, and then the switch looks at a file it's got in it called a filter table, and it says, I got this packet came in with this MAC address as a destination. Who's got that MAC address? And the switch knows that MAC address is associated with the computer, in this example, in the upper right-hand side. So it's connected to, reading from the bottom, hardware port 123. So the switch retransmits the packet to, and only to, where it is supposed to go, to the device that it is addressed to. That's what a network switch does. Now, I will point out that in most cases, a place like Bob's Body Shop or your house or probably your office, if it's a small network, you've got what we call an unmanaged switch. An unmanaged switch has no programming options. And I'm going to tell you that's a good thing because there's nothing to change. You don't have to worry about the settings. Now, if you take these products out and you go to that big installation, which you can use them there too, but you go to that big installation where they've got the big Cisco switches and the rack mount and the separate telecom closets and that sort of thing, they're going to have an IT person there too, or they're going to have availability of one. You're going to have to talk to that IT person about how your information is going to flow through the switch. Unmanaged switches are a good thing because there's no management to them. You just plug them in, turn them on, and they work. So don't be afraid of the unmanaged switch. I push video through them all day long. There's nothing wrong with them. They can handle it. It'll work fine. You won't swamp an unmanaged switch, even with megapixel video. It's just not possible. The switches have got way more capability than the bandwidth even your megapixel devices are going to put out. So you're good. Now, let's talk about the circumstance where you are doing the survey and you look at the customer's little Belkin or D-Link or Linksys switch and you look at the back and you see that let's say that you're going to connect a 2040 and 4 wired cameras. That means you need 5 open switch ports that are labeled LAN. Now, if you look at the back of your customer's switch, if I looked at the back of my Linksys switch, there's only 4 ports there to begin with, and mine are all full, right? So what do you do if you need more switch ports than are on the customer's existing network? It's simple. Go buy a new switch. You can buy a 6-port switch that'll work great. You can buy them for 20 bucks. They're inexpensive. And all you would do is you look at the, let's say there's 1 port available on the existing switch. You would buy a used factory-made jumpers, Cat5e jumpers, plug it into that existing switch port on the existing switch, plug it into the new switch, and now if it's a 6-port switch, you've got 5 ports available for your 2040 and the 4 new cameras that you're going to put on. So remember to look for the switch ports. If there's not enough switch ports to get it done, no problem. We can add a switch. It's easy to do. Nothing to it. Just costs a few dollars. Now,